Okay, so imagine a kind of writing that just throws the entire rulebook out the window. A style that was born from this messy, chaotic community, a style that was totally unafraid to put the most complicated parts of life. We're talking gossip, sex, heavy duty theory, tragedy, right there on the page. This is the story of New Narrative. Wow, this line, it's from Sam D'Alessandro, one of the movement's brightest lights, gone way too soon. It just hits you, doesn't it? It's not trying to be subtle. It's not hiding behind some clever metaphor. It's a declaration. And it's exactly this kind of raw, unapologetic honesty that defines this whole way of writing.
So, what do you even do with a line like that? Where does it come from? It really makes you stop and ask, right? What kind of writing dares to be this blunt, this personal, this, well, disastrous? That's exactly what we're going to get into.
To really get New Narrative, you have to understand that it was telling a radically different story. And more than that, you have to understand what it was fighting against. This wasn't just about a new plot, it was about blowing up the very idea of how a story should even be told. You know, at its core, New Narrative was a group project. It wasn't cooked up in some stuffy university classroom. No, it was born in workshops, in apartments, between friends and lovers. It welcomed everything that serious literature was supposed to ignore: the mess, the gossip, the explicit sexuality, the political arguments. It wanted to sound like actual, complicated life. So let's dig into where this all came from. It really starts with maybe the single most famous piece of writing advice ever, and New Narrative's decision to basically tear it to shreds. Their whole philosophy? Tell, don't show. So you can see it kind of bubbling up from this San Francisco poetry scene back in the late 70s, but it really finds its voice in the early 80s, thanks to these workshops led by the writer Robert Glück. That's where the community really starts to form. By the middle of the decade, they're getting national attention. But this whole creative explosion, it was on a direct collision course with a historical tragedy that was about to change absolutely everything.
For decades, the golden rule of writing was show, don't tell. You create a scene, you stay objective, you let the reader figure things out. New Narrative looked at that and gave a hard pass. Their whole thing was to tell you everything. The writer isn't some god hiding behind a curtain. No, they're right there in the room with you, telling you what they think, what they feel, and yeah, even what they heard about somebody else.
So when you boil it all down, New Narrative wasn't just a style, it was a whole philosophy. It was about creating literature where the author's life, their friends' lives, the books they were reading, the sex they were having, all of it was fair game. It was a total rejection of neatness in favor of a messy, vibrant, and much more complicated reality. And this wasn't just some abstract idea, right? This philosophy was put into practice by a core group of writers who are always talking to each other, both in person and in their work. They created a real community right there on the page. And these are the names at the center of that world. You've got Robert Glück, kind of the intellectual anchor, Dodie Bellamy, who is just fearless in writing about the body, the really transgressive Dennis Cooper. And look, they weren't just colleagues, they were friends, they were lovers, they were rivals, often writing about each other, sometimes even as each other. It created this literary world that was like one big, brilliant, and super complicated conversation. So how'd they actually do it? Well, it came down to three key techniques. First, radical confession, basically sharing deeply personal, sometimes really unflattering details about yourself. Second, appropriation. They would literally just lift passages from other books, anything from dense philosophy to trashy novels, and collage them into their own writing. And third, collaboration. They treated writing like a group sport, a way to build and define their own community. Listen to this from Bruce Boone. It's not just a confession, it's an analysis, right? He's dissecting the power dynamics of his own desire, asking this question that's both super personal and also kind of universal. For them, the messiness was the point. And then you have Dodie Bellamy, who takes it even further. This is writing that is just relentlessly focused on the body, what it needs, the ways it can be humiliated, its power to just completely take over the ego. It's this absolutely unflinching look at losing yourself to desire, which was a huge theme for the entire movement. And then there's Robert Glück, pushing into the theory behind it all, asking this massive question. What if love and friendship are just safety features that we bolt onto the raw, dangerous engine of sex? This is what made New Narrative so electric. It would smash together this raw, lived experience with really sharp intellectual questions, all on the same page. But this community, a community so obsessed with life, with sex, with the body, was about to collide head-on with a historical catastrophe. A catastrophe that would give all of their artistic questions a terrifying new urgency. This line from Dennis Cooper, it's just devastatingly precise. Think about it. Before AIDS, death could be this romantic thing, something you could theorize about or play with in art. But the epidemic just stripped all that away. Death wasn't a literary concept anymore. It was a brutal, relentless, and totally unglamorous reality. And here's the really terrifying thing. It wasn't that the AIDS crisis brought new themes to new narrative. It was that it took the themes that were already there, the fragile body, the complications of desire, the shadow of mortality, and gave them this horrific, inescapable weight. What had been a kind of theoretical exploration was, all of a sudden, a matter of life and death. The human cost was just immense. The community was decimated. These are just some of the writers and artists that were lost. Each name represents a personal tragedy, a voice silenced, a body of work cut short. You weren't just losing artists, you were losing your friends, your collaborators. You were losing your entire world. This line from Sam D'Alessandro, which he wrote before he himself died from AIDS, it just captures the haunting reality for the people who survived. It speaks to a kind of grief that's so profound it just consumes everything. It's the voice of a generation that was forced to write from the very heart of an unimaginable loss. But even with all that devastation, the movement's influence didn't just end there. Actually, in a lot of ways, its radical approach to writing and to the self became more relevant than it had ever been.
I mean, just think about it for a second. A style that jumps between high theory and personal gossip, that mashes up different voices and texts, that presents a self that's always shifting and performing. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like scrolling through a social media feed or trying to figure out who you are online? They were doing this on paper for 40 years ago. It was prophetic.
And that right there is probably the movement's most urgent legacy. We live in a world where we're all constantly curating this polished, perfect version of ourselves online. New Narrative is this powerful counterpoint. It champions the messy, the contradictory, the uncomfortably honest. It argues that our real selves aren't in that one perfect photo, but in all the chaotic, overlapping stories we tell about our lives. So it really leaves us with this question. At a time when we perform our lives more publicly than ever, but often feel more disconnected, what's the value of radical honesty? What can a literary movement that decided to just tell and keep telling teach us about what it means to be a human being right here, right now?
Thanks for watching. We hope you learned more about the new narrative and are ready to embark on your own unique storytelling journey. To find out more, feel free to visit us at www.queertriptych.weebly.com.